All right. Good morning, everyone. And it's a pleasure to be here. I see time is going, so without any further ado, I would like to introduce the breakout session in this room. As our MC has initially introduced, the title for this session today is Feeding the Future, Tackling Nutrition and Food Insecurity with Inclusive and Sustainable Solutions. Today, I'll be moderator for the breakout session here. We have four distinguished speakers who will be doing justice to this topic and ensuring that we dialogue and identify sustainable, innovative solutions to tackle nutrition. Also putting the gender awareness to it, as putting it in the theme of the conference today. First speaker I would like to invite to join us on the stage will be Dr. Mego Kwenobe. Just a round of applause as Thank you very much. I just got informed that Dr. Mego is not here yet, so I'll move on to the next speaker. I believe this is Amy that is familiar with both of us in the room. She is the Senior Special Analyst to the President, Senior Special Assistant, to the President on Public Health, Office of the Vice President on Nutrition. Also in the room, I'll be having Tomi Singh Odumbaku joining me on the stage. It's a round of applause. Tomi Singh is Program Project Manager and the lead for the SDN at the Global Alliance for Improved Nutrition. That's it. Please a round of applause as it comes up. Thank you. Dr. Mego is the lead and founder for Lead Oak Women and Lead Oak Women and just let me get that. And Children Foundation. Thank you. So, thank you, Mr. Tomisin. My first question will be, I want you to talk about the importance of infrastructure. Being a vehicle for improving nutrition and advancing the food systems, putting gender to it. So, can you give us a deep insight on the impact of poor infrastructure in delivering improved nutrition to pregnant women, to children, and other vulnerable groups?
Thank you very much. To answer that very complex question, there are a few things that we need to define. But before we define them, I'd like to maybe give a brief introduction for the organization I work for and the initiative I lead. The Global Alliance for Improved Nutrition is an international non-governmental organization based in Switzerland that focuses on improving nutrition for population globally, and we are working to improve nutrition for about 1.5 billion people. And we are doing that in alliances with the private sector, with government, civil society. And one of the programs at the Global Alliance for Improved Nutrition that I lead is the Scaling Up Nutrition Business Network, which mobilizes the private sector to investing in best practices that enhances access, availability, and affordability of nutritious food. Now, coming back to your question about the importance of infrastructure to delivering nutrition and food security for pregnant women and vulnerable groups. First of all, the major malnutrition is a complex problem. And this problem can be broken down into three things. It's the availability of nutritious food, accessibility of this food, and affordability of them. Now, what infrastructure does is to make it easier for these things to happen. For example, availability means there needs to be enough food in the country for us to have access to it, for it to be available. Now, what are the infrastructural limitations affecting availability? It will include security problems. All of us in this room have heard about herdsmen and what they are doing to agriculture in the country. I will not go deep into all of that detail, but that is one infrastructural problem. Road transportation to rural areas where most farmlands exist is a problem. For many of the people in agri-businesses, they know how difficult it is to access some of the farmlands where we are expected to get the food that will feed the nation. So, two problems now. Storage is another problem. After you've produced or you farm, and then you found your way to this farmland, getting these products to where it will be stored is a major problem, and that contributes to post-harvest losses in the country. Data has it that 50% of most of our agri-produce go to waste because we are not able to store them appropriately. Now, these are some of the factors that exacerbate the problems of nutrition in the country. And these limit how pregnant women have access to nutritious food. So these are some of the factors that I can talk about right now.
Thank you so much, Mr. Thomason. And if you listen carefully, you hear he mentioned quite a few salient points. He defined food security being not just ability to access food, but then it has different dimensions that without them being in place at the same time, then there's no food security. He also spoke about the post-harvest loss. Now, that's really staggering for me. 50% of the food that we produce is lost after it's been harvested. That's a huge number. And yes, you will say we're eating in the country, but then imagine if 100% of the food we produce reaches the mouths or the tables of everybody. Imagine the impact it will have for nutrition. Imagine the impact it will have for jobs and women as well. Thank you so much again, Dr. Thomason. And thank you so much, Dr. Mego, for joining us. The question I would have for you is to take the discussion away from maybe the broader systems, and let's go down to the grassroots. Let's go down to the community. Let's explore how behavior change, cultural norms also affect nutrition. And my question would be, how do cultural practices, say for example, early child marriage and other societal practices, how do they undermine maternal and child nutrition? And as you're talking about that, can you tell us, maybe just give us more on the role of women education in advancing nutrition?
Okay. Hello, good morning. Yeah. Thank you for that question. Packed questions, actually 3 questions in one. But those are very good questions. It's very important to talk about cultural norms and the role, because you see, the answer there lies in trust, and not just the trainings and the things that we do alone. Why? Because our culture is quite deeply ingrained. I remember as a young doctor, when I still worked in the clinic, it was something that baffled me of how we would sit down, and I mean, we are doctors and my consultants and everybody, and we spend time explaining to this patient why she shouldn't do this, or why she should go home, why she should take her folic acid, for example, supplement. And she goes home and her grandmother says, no, don't take it. It's going to cause jaundice for the baby. And she goes home and doesn't take it. And you're wondering, what is going on? This is because our traditional rulers, our religious rulers, our parents, grandmothers, our society, they are the gatekeepers. They are actually the gatekeepers. And we cannot make any progress in trying to, first of all, helping people understand the kind of urgency and the kind of seriousness that the malnutrition issue is in Nigeria today. And so we must engage these gatekeepers with respect. In the line of my work, that's what I've seen, with respect, coming into their communities, respecting their own beliefs, respecting their cultural norms, being co-creators with them as we begin to discuss the issues or make them see what needs to be done and why it needs to be done. I'll give you an example. So early childhood development, for example, which is one of the major sectors in which I work, we say that the foundation of every human's life, which is the first 5 years, right, actually starts from the adolescent girl who can be pregnant. And so early marriage, like you just raised, which is still practiced, unfortunately, in many parts of Nigeria, adolescent marriages of young girls, has such a negative impact. We have up to 33% of children who will be born to adolescent girls already going to be stunted. Just pause for a bit for that number. And before you wonder, okay, stunted, what's the big deal about that? Stunting which is caused by malnutrition, by age 2 is established. And that means that you have both weight issues, so maybe the child is born low birth weight, the child is born with some childhood morbidities, but more importantly, there's irreversible cognitive damage. That is irreversible damage to the brain. That, guess what, except by a miracle, if that child is stunted by 2, can never be reversed for life. So I want us to think about that for a moment. It's not just noise that we're making. We're saying that that child may never have the opportunity to reach full developmental potential just because in the first 2 years he didn't get, or he or she didn't get what they needed because of malnutrition. And this, for example, for adolescent, if an adolescent girl is going to have a child, 33% of those children are already doomed to come out as stunted. And if I layer it on your question on women's education, and this is because why? For adolescent girls, many of them that we have met all around the country, some of them are barely done with their primary school education. Some of them have to drop out of secondary school. Some of them are still growing themselves, still developing. Some of them even are battling malnutrition themselves. So you can imagine that kind of mother giving birth to a child. And now, because her education level is low, again, studies tell us that the mother's education is a very strong predictor of child health and survival. In fact, in many studies, they say it's the strongest predictor, not the father's education, but the mother's education. Why? Because educated women, or women that are more educated, will have a higher understanding to be able to, number one, seek good, have good health-seeking behavior. They will be more, they'll be the ones who will go to antenatal visits, right? They'll probably be the ones that will have their babies in a primary healthcare center or in a center where they can have help. They'll also be the ones who can read fortified food labels, for example, or take the prescription that the doctor has given and are able to know how to give their children the right drugs. So these are some of the reasons why, because women are the primary caregivers in our society, it's found that the level of education of the mother is so important as to whether that child will survive or not. And if that child survives, whether the child would thrive or not. And if you see what happens between the first 5 years of a child's life, where you think, oh, it's just growing, but really, the foundation is being set for everything. We say that if you can change the beginning of the story, you can change the whole story. Because the first 5 years of a child's life is the make or break period in a child's life. And so, all these cultural norms we talk about, whether it concerns, child marriages, or it concerns our beliefs around food. That's another one, whether you don't give an egg to the child so that the child will not steal, or whether the colostrum. So colostrum is the first breast milk that comes out of the breast when the mom starts lactating for the first couple of days, and it's so packed with so many nutrients, like it's the best. But guess what? In some parts of our country, they're told, oh no, that's bad for the baby, so don't give the baby in that time. So all of these things, and it keeps affecting and it's creating this vicious cycle of poverty, of malnutrition. And so what kind of future are we going to build? What kind of individuals are going to carry on the future that we have? So again, I come back to the fact that for cultural norms, is trust, not training alone. You must respectfully engage with those gatekeepers because you have to co-create the solutions together in the way that they will understand. When you tell them that this thing is going to make it results in your child not being able to lift your family out of poverty, you see their eyes pop up open and say, oh wow, yes, this thing you're doing is not, oh really, I have actually found so much collaboration and partnership with community leaders, religious leaders. We have imams and pastors now preaching using our nutrition curriculum in their sermons in church now. They're doing it in PHCs, they're doing it in second chance literacy centers. So we can leverage these existing platforms to be able to bring this solution as long as we are engaging the gatekeepers as partners in the...
Thank you. Thank you so much, Dr. Mego. That was, as she said, the question was packed and she gave a packed delivery to the question. Thank you so much. And I'll use this opportunity to introduce the last speaker for today, Dr. Osunega Morokpo. She just joined us. But like I mentioned, we have a speaker also joining us virtually. Mrs. Uju, just to confirm that you can hear us now. So while we make that confirmation, thank you so much again, Dr. Mego. She spoke about the vicious circle, and I like the way she ended that, getting into the vicious circle. I want to put a picture to this vicious circle, maybe amplify what she had said. If you see, we have a teenage girl that is due, a lady that has reached the age of reproduction, a lady that has reached the age of having the potential to give birth. If nutrition is not right at that point, even before the child is conceived, you could have begun to set a precedence for malnutrition before a child is even conceived. And then a child is conceived, and perchance it's a female child, and that same cultural system still exists. It puts the already disadvantaged child in more disadvantage. And if that system is not improved, the disadvantage continues. And that is a really vicious circle that, if it's not broken, I think I don't have to put a picture on to what the future might be. Mrs. Uju, do we have you on the call now? Okay. So while that is being sorted, we'll move on to Mrs. Osenega. Thank you for joining us. So we've spoken about infrastructure and how it links to improving nutrition, and as you came in, you had Dr. Meg also telling us about the importance of cultural systems and how they also influence nutrition and how they influence women of reproductive age. I would want you to talk to us a bit more about innovation. Looking at your role, your role at working under the TGI group, also currently as the president for Shield Africa, how important is innovation for improving nutrition? And one innovation I can maybe put in to set the tone for this discussion, looking at fortification, for example, and how it has been useful as a vehicle to drive nutrition for vulnerable populations, women, children, and other different kind of vulnerable groups. Please shed more light into this for us, and maybe as you do that, you could tell us the importance of data also for nutrition. Thank you.
Okay, thank you once again for having me. First of all, I must commend the PIC for such a wonderful setup this year. This is looking really beautiful. Very well done to Dr. Sui and the entire PIC team. So when we talk about innovation and how specifically this contributes to improving nutrition, the truth is that the importance of innovation cannot be overemphasized and should not be underemphasized. It's important that year in, year out, there is new knowledge. There's new infrastructure being introduced into the concept of improving malnutrition or the case of malnutrition. For example, the moderator referred to fortification of foods. While I was with Africa Improved Foods in Rwanda, we were very specific about let's use Rwanda as a case study. Just to take us 31 years back, many of us here are aware of the case of Rwanda, where because of the genocide, many of the children lost their mothers as a result of the war. And even for those people who were alive, for the women who were alive, it was almost difficult or impossible to find a real source of nutrition for the children. And so for a long time, we saw cases of people having stunted growth. And now when we're talking stunted growth, we're not talking of being, a dwarf. It was for the first time while living in Rwanda, I saw that there were people who were 6'2", right, who were still stunted. Because you would ask a 6'2" tall man, what is a simple topic? Maybe what's the direction to, let's say, Kinyarwanda or how do you speak this language, or how do you do this? And the person is just staring at you. And you're wondering, but what I asked you is really simple. So why aren't you able to tell me the answer to something as simple as this? That man, that woman is stunted. And it started from the problem of his mother. And it started from the malnutrition issues. So what we started doing intentionally while I was at Africa Improved Foods was to say, look, Rwanda is coming from this problem, but we are very intentional about making sure that the next generation doesn't suffer it. And so we started working with the United Nations on several fortification programs, and the specific foods we were making was for lactating mothers and pregnant women. The specific innovation we are bringing in was, okay, let's look at bringing in things as simple as vitamin A, vitamin K. We're looking at certain minerals, and we're doing a lot of mixed vitamins. We're very intentional about doing a lot of research, which I think is important for innovation. You need to keep, bringing, like I said in the beginning, you need to keep bringing in new knowledge. So we did all of that over periods of about 5 years, just doing that research. So innovation is very expensive, I must say. And that's why I continue to encourage that in terms of policy formulation, there is enough funding, and in terms of advocacy, we continue to advocate for more funding to be made available for new innovation, which has to be backed up by research. So we did all of that, and then what we saw in terms of data was over 90% improvement in iron deficiency, over 95% improvement in night blindness, and then we started measuring other data. And this leads me to the question that you asked me: what's the importance, right, of data in making sure that we are, intentionally improving on the issues of malnutrition? Again, it cannot be overemphasized. You need to continue to build data and build data over many years, right? And you need to have a sustainable way of storing this data and referring to this data in a way that even generations to come will be able to utilize it. So when we talk about innovation and, of course, backed up by data or digital innovations as well, just to be able to solve the problem of malnutrition, it can't be overemphasized.
Thank you so much, Dr. Oxenepa. If you listen carefully to what she said, nutrition cannot be solved alone by a one-size-fits-all approach. Each speaker has given different innovative ways to improve nutrition, and most of our nutrition initiatives are targeted at vulnerable groups. But like she said, you need innovation to improve. And I like the direction she's coming from, targeting the group that has not really been looked at for a long time. They also suffer malnutrition. She gave us the example of a stunted man that is tall. Stunting doesn't just happen to your height. Stunting is not just about... Sorry, there's an echo. Can I go on? Okay. Oh, thank you. I see Dr. Uju has joined us. So stunting just is not about your height, but your mental development also. It's an outcome of stunting at an early age. Thank you so much for joining us, Mrs. Uju. Good morning once again. I would want you to, maybe for the next 5 minutes, give us an overarching link to all that we've been discussing. So we spoke about infrastructure, we spoke about cultural norms, and we spoke about innovation and technology. I want you to put all this into one in using the policy angle. And your work under the N774 initiative, that's a multi-sectoral collaborative action to improve nutrition across all local government areas in Nigeria. So put this into one and tell us how important is policy for improving nutrition. Thank you.
Good morning, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, so I'm still having a glitch in terms of hearing the questions. I'm having to listen in from a different platform, but if I got your question correctly, if you can hear me, you're trying to find out about the multi-sectoral coordination and collaboration to tackle. Okay, great. There's an echo as well. But good morning, distinguished ladies and gentlemen. I really would have loved to be there in person, but I could not. And I know time is fast spent. There is an echo in the back as well. But just to answer your question or to address your question on the issue of malnutrition, malnutrition cannot be tackled by one sector alone. It is a challenge that I often say is one of the quietest killer in Nigeria. It's one that doesn't announce itself like gunfire. It doesn't make headlines like insecurity. It doesn't trend, but it actually kills more dreams than conflict ever will. And this challenge requires a coordinated, collaborative effort across the various sectors, across the three tiers of government. And this is where the Nutrition 774 initiative comes in. It is a flagship initiative of the National Council on Nutrition, chaired by His Excellency the Vice President, Senator Kashim Shettima. And so in practical terms, what this does is basically a framework. Think of it as a puzzle board that puts together all the puzzle pieces. There's a lot of work going on in tackling malnutrition across government sectors, development partners, private sector as well. But there needs to be a collaborative, coordinated effort. We can't win this battle against malnutrition in an isolated manner. So these puzzle pieces are then fit together to ensure that we address malnutrition where it matters the most, which is at the grassroots. It has to be a bottom-top approach. Our policies have to reflect the unique realities. Nigeria is a multi-ethnic and multi-tribal nation, and we must ensure that whatever solutions that we prefer are ones that are practical. It meets the realities, it meets the needs, the cultural needs, bearing into mind the diverse cultural needs in our country. And so what we've been doing on the N774 is to really ensure that we bring in key stakeholders, again from the bottom top, the local government, council committees on food and nutrition, ensuring that they're established, they're up and running. This is where the local government chairman, vice chairman, traditional leaders, women leaders sit. They understand where it hurts, where the challenges are within their communities. And so what N774 for short does is across the 5 sectors of health, education, agriculture, social protection, water, sanitation, and hygiene. And our 5 main pillars are decentralized coordination, like I mentioned, not just coordination at the federal level, but to ensure that we're coordinating at the local government level, which is closest to the people. And then also to ensure that our nutrition, we prioritize nutrition in the front burner of the national agenda, which His Excellency the President is key on. I'm sure he's been hearing a lot of calls around this issue of tackling malnutrition. So beyond that is also to see how do we advocate to the state governors. And we started that with specific asks. There's the Nigerian Governors Forum that's working in a coordinated effort on what we have as the National Nutrition Scorecard, which tells every state how it's doing. And so I heard one of the speakers mention about data, which is key. That's what helps with informed decision making. There's also the fact that there are so many interventions across nutrition. It's a multi-sectoral issue, like I said earlier. But how can we prioritize these interventions to make sure that we're having the best buy, we're putting the money where it matters the most, and where it will give the highest value of results. So what we're doing here is, like I mentioned, across the 5 sectors, we've prioritized interventions that are seen to be as the best buy. Financing is also one of the pillars, as well as the big elephant in the room. So, as you're all aware, there's a lot of cutback from foreign aid, international foreign aid, but to see how Nigeria, which is a country that's so richly blessed in natural resources and human resources, how can we improve our own domestic financing? Again, this comes from budget appropriation, but beyond the appropriation is the release of these funds. Again, that's where the Nutrition 774 initiative comes in. Going state to state, LGS to LGS, holding our leaders accountable. And this is where, as citizens, you also have the right to ask us as leaders, to ask our leaders, where have these funds been put in? Have these funds been released? Because nutrition is linked it's the foundation, right? It affects the cognitive development of a child, and we need to ensure that if we have this together, it will link to the workforce productivity of our nation and the growth of our nation by extension. So it's really an initiative that we're moving together, again, like I said, with the support of development partners, the civil society organizations, academia. One of the speakers mentioned the cultural nuances, the norms around early marriages. Again, this is where it comes in, the tertiary rulers. They hold the influence, right, to ensure that, and they often listen to not just tertiary rulers, but religious leaders as well, so that they understand the essence, the importance of tackling malnutrition in a very coordinated manner. And that's what the N774 does. There's a lot of information out there on this. Again, for us to tackle this issue, everyone must come on the table. The people, it's a people-centered initiative that holds government accountable for the actions and promises. So we're hoping that in recent times we'll be able to see the numbers drop with a coordinated effort. And currently the policy is being reviewed, the multi-sectoral plan of action, to take into consideration the evolving times and to make sure that our policies are implementable and that they speak to current realities. I'm hoping I answered your question. I didn't get most part of it, but I think it was around policy and the coordinated effort in tackling malnutrition.
Yes, thank you so much, Mrs. Uju, and you answered it
I
perfectly.
can hear you. I can see you're speaking, but I can't hear you.
Okay. Thank you so much.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Yeah. So, Mrs. Uju has spoken about the importance of policy and why it's really relevant not to plan policies at the top, but also pick it up from the bottom. So it's all inclusive, and it really drives sustainable solutions. For the interest of time, and so we ensure that this discussion is coming from both directions, we will take about 3 questions from the audience, just 3 questions because of time, and I'll have my esteemed panelists address those questions. So I see one hand, lady in red, please. Can someone help me hand mics over to them? And there's a second person here. And there's a third person over there. Oh, just 3 questions. Is anybody going to? Thank you very much. Two. Can we get mics, please? Two. Yes. Thank you.
Thank you very much, moderator. And thank you, all the speakers. They've all done well. I am Professor Mercy Adanyiwe. I'm from University of Benin. I listened to all we've just said about this malnutrition, but there's something that bothers me. The other lady, the speaker there, she talked about that when in Rwanda, they decided to see what they could do to beef up nutrition in food, and they were looking for vitamin A, vitamin B, vitamin K, and all that. My problem here is that many times we resort to foreign issues, foreign materials. If you look at Nigeria, in short, whenever I have a conference like this and I hear people speak, Nigerians speak, I get so proud of being born in Nigeria. And to add to it is the fact that in Nigeria, we have a lot of things. There are so many food we have, different types, but we don't use them. For instance, when we talk about malnutrition, you find that it's not just the quantity of food being available we are talking about. Some can eat gari and bar forever, and then they get malnutrition, and that's a problem. But we have beans, we have lentils, we have fruits, we have so many things. Nigerians, can we please look inward and see how we can really beef up our food? For instance, this morning, I take example, I simply just took almond as the first thing this morning. And almond has a lot of nutrition in it. But once upon a time, we had almond everywhere. As a child, I remember that I was always eating almond, playfully. But today, we hardly have the trees around. What is wrong with us? That is the problem. It bothers me. I think we, particularly those of you who are already up there and doing so well, should help us to see how we can harness some of these things. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Mrs. Osenega, we'll take the rest of the questions. Please take note of that one. We'll come back to you. Over there in red.
Okay, thank you. My name is Elizabeth Issa. Thank you to all the speakers. I just want to speak to the innovation part on malnutrition. From my experience on the field, there are a lot of pregnant women and, let's say, breastfeeding women who tend to seek services, sometimes not from the PHCs, not from the tertiary hospitals, but from TBAs, traditional birth attendants. And also, these people, for them going there is maybe because the PHCs, the tertiary hospitals, are distant for them. And also, they can't afford to transport themselves to those places. So they miss out on some of these innovations. It's just like a contribution that we should just look into that aspect, especially here in Nigeria. It's very common. I did a study and it showed that about 39% of the pregnant women that we tested in 5 states, about 500 plus, 200,000 plus were from TBAs. And it shows that, yes, they actually do patronize the traditional birth attendants, and it will go a long way for us to pass our innovation, at least to that extent. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And Dr. Mego, I think I'll direct this question to you. Okay. But let's take the third question.
Okay, good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Thank you to all the speakers. My name is Dr. Jamila, and I'm a nutrition specialist. There's a lot on my mind, and a lot have been spoken about. Thank you to the professor who brought, he talked about innovation and finding local solutions. And when you talk about malnutrition, most people look at undernutrition. But in Nigeria, we're burdened with, there's a triple burden of malnutrition. We have undernutrition, we have, micronutrient deficiency, and we have overnutrition as well. And I think, coming to what Professor spoke about, having to look for local solutions instead of depending on bringing in micronutrient powders and all of that. We have nutrient-dense foods in Nigeria. I think we should look at policy shifts advocating for consuming foods that are nutrient-dense within the communities. We don't even need to go to almonds, honestly. Some of these things are not even available and affordable. But you mentioned going from the bottom-up approach. We have nutrient-dense foods within our communities that we can advocate for. Speak to the gatekeepers of the communities, women groups, so women especially, to be able to look back and see what we have that is nutrient-dense that can help to support their nutritional status. So my question actually, this is just a contribution, but my question actually is, it talks about adolescent malnutrition and how important nutrition is in the life of adolescent girls. Now, we cannot stop, adolescents from getting married, girls in the teenage age from getting married. And adolescence is a very critical period of growth, especially for girls, because they are developing at the time. And it also provides us with the second critical window of opportunity for nutritional interventions that may have been missed during early childhood. For years after years, there have been nutritional interventions targeted at 0 to 5 years old, because we know how critical that stage is in the lives of children. But then again, look at the adolescent girls. We know that a pre-pregnant, malnourished adolescent girl is most likely going to give birth to a malnourished child. And the circle of malnutrition, disease, and infection continues. Now, what do we do as a society? What are we doing to end malnutrition in adolescent girls? We know how important this is. This is a very target group, and up till date, there's still no nutritional intervention targeted at adolescent girls in Nigeria. What are we doing as a society, the government, individuals, non-governmental organizations? What are we doing to target this group? I think they've been a neglected group, and they're so important, but then they are not targeted or prioritized for nutritional interventions that can help improve their nutritional status. At the same time, that of the unborn children, this is the future generation who already, being a malnourished mother, you are already likely going to give birth to a malnourished child. That's my question, and I would just like to hear what we're doing and how we can also contribute, Yes,
thank you. Thank you so much. So I think I would make this just 2 questions. The last 2 questions can be answered by Dr. Osinega, and then Mrs. Osinekpa, please, over to you. Localizing innovative solutions.
Yes, thank you very much, Prof, for stressing that important point. After listening to Prof, what I could pick from her point is that the point is mainly stressing 2 challenges. One, Prof has highlighted food insecurity challenge, and she has also highlighted poor dietary challenge, which is something that we need to look into. Now, let's look at the aspect of the poor dietary challenge, where she said clearly that we actually do have local solutions to malnutrition instead of banking solely on fortification from foreign sources. One thing I would say is we need to advocate for more local consumption, but there's a big challenge. I think it's storage and infrastructure challenge. We have clearly seen cases where, let's say in the case of Benue State, Benue produces numerous volumes of fruits, but most of these fruits do not last more than a week, more than a few days, and it's gone. One thing I would give as a solution to that is we must eat during the season. Our mothers would always tell us, when a fruit is in season, try and eat as much of it as possible. So in our advocacy and in our education to the rural women and communities, we must tell them. And also in the urban areas, because I think urban people are also deficient. Because that thing she mentioned about eating eba, eating gari, eating noodles, eating spaghetti, and you think you are enjoying, but you're not. You're actually malnourished, and that's why if you do a full blood count, you would realize that you are having low blood platelets, you are having some real issues because you're not eating a balanced diet. So we must focus on eating foods and fruits when they are in season. I think that can solve this challenge. And then we have to also focus on storage solutions. There's cold storage. We have to start looking at food banks, in cases where when foods are being produced during season, the nutrient-dense ones can be put together, stored, we need to put innovations into finding how to store in, cold rooms and in dried forms that could last for months or even years. I think that can solve the problem. I'll just speak a little to another thing that we need to focus on in terms of food insecurity. Sometimes beyond the solutions, we have to also look at the volumes. Food insecurity is a real issue. Sometimes the volumes are really not enough to go around the population like Nigeria. So I would always push for youth inclusion in agriculture, because I would always say the average farmer's age currently is 60-something. The average youth is 19. Before you know what's happening, the farmers who currently farm for us, they will soon pass away, whether we like it or not. And that would even increase the burden of food insecurity. So, for us to solve this problem and solve it once and for all, we have to start looking at solutions to bring in more youths that can take over agriculture as the next generation. What Shield Africa is doing is this year we introduced the Shield Africa Farmers Academy, where we're intentional about bringing youths, into colleges where they learn practical ways of farming certain produce of interest, and of course, nutrient-rich produce. And then they can take this over as a job instead of waiting for government employment. So all of these solutions, I think, can ultimately help towards driving a more nutrient-rich society, inclusive of mothers, young girls, and children. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Smega. Thank you. And Dr. Mego, so do you still remember the questions?
Yeah.
Yes, please help pack into one. And
All right.
Thank
Thank
you
you for those questions. I'll just briefly touch on the questions on the traditional birth attendants. You are very correct, and it's something that the health sector is very well aware of. So for many years, we've had programs actually integrating and training traditional birth attendants to be able to do the minimum, because we know that you can't stop it, and it's in our society, it's in our culture, it's happening anyway. And so there are programs to train them just to become better in what they do, and to know when to know that the road has stopped and when they should ensure that these people get to the hospital or a primary health care center that's around. So that's ongoing. I'd like to respond to your question. Very, very brilliant question. You see, there is, and I think not just for adolescent girls, so I'll tell you about a project we're working on at the moment, and what we did. But you see, just like Mr. Senaga said, it's sad, but it's not even just in the adolescent girl range, all across board. Unfortunately, we're still in a state as a people, Nigerians now, where we are still heavily westernized, right? We're still all under heavy Western influence. So what we have found, even in the rural areas, is this emerging groupthink, right? Where everybody thinks, like she was saying, that, oh, if I give my child pasta, and I give my child noodles, I'm the best mother ever. So we are literally exchanging our gold for grass, and by that I mean nutritional, really nice local nutritional foods for empty calories. Because we believe, so in the work I will talk to you about, which we're doing in Kaduna and Kebbi, we sat down with, doing the needs assessment and trying to find out what's really going on ground, and when you hear what people feed their children in a week, so I'm like, if I come to your house and I stay with you for a week, what am I going to see? And you're very right, it's pasta, it's, noodles, it's rice, and just plain, nothing. Why? And because when my child sees that other child eating it, she's crying, she's, and you see, that's where education, as we're talking about, came in. So I know you said that we might not be able to stop adolescents, but we need to stop it. We need to keep re-educating, and there are different things we can do. So I'll just finish with talking about what we did. So basically, we sat with them and understanding that we went back and worked again with them, had another session with them to get them to remember, Nigeria is so blessed when it comes to food. There's food in this country. Whenever I am here, I put on, an average of 5 kg tank. There's food, and we have diversity. For Kaduna State, for example, it was so amazing. We came up with this beautiful menu for like 1 week that was made up of 3 square meals and snacks in between. Oh my God. Of just local foods, right? Very rich. You talk about pate, for example, very rich. You throw in all those things. Somebody's going to buy biscuits for her child, but there's awara on the streets for the same amount, right? And these are people who are still struggling with poverty. There's no money, right? And so we had to, so I think there's a nutrition literacy that needs to be done. To answer your question, it needs to be done en masse. We have to do it, we have behavioral change campaigns that we're doing on radio. We have dramas, skits that we're acting, in the market squares and town halls. We need to take it on WhatsApp. We need to take it on TikTok. Because like you said, there are the other ones who, the problem is not poverty, but there's still nutrition illiteracy. And your child is now eating pizza and all of that. Again, it's empty calories. So we need to re-educate ourselves as a society. And remember what we have. When we listed all the foods that were found in Kaduna State and in Kebbi State, locally found and made, it was amazing. Like, the list was endless. And we're able to put together this menu that they were very happy to have, so they don't have to think again, what can I make? But we did it with them. The answers lie with the people. But we had to show them that this is not helping your child, it's actually killing your child, and we have to change that. And when they understood that, we could work together to create that. We didn't stop there. We had to do home gardening trainings, for example, because people tell you, oh, well, where can I get this? Or I cannot afford this. And they also found out that spinach, for example, they learned will grow in 1 week if you just planted it in a little container in your house. Right? And so we got all those trainings. So these are the kind of things that we need to mainstream. And as a people, we need to be talking about it. How you eat, even amongst the elites now, we're seeing higher cases of diabetes and all sorts of things. It's like we're on that other spectrum, we're eating ourselves to death. Right? But there's a way to eat. There's how to eat, right? And we have everything around. And I think that if we really engage nutritional education, nutritional literacy, for all of us, we'll be able to do better. So for adolescent girls in particular, there's an agile program that I think most of us know about, happening most across the nation. They have second chance education centers for adolescent girls who dropped out of school to go and get married and all of that. And so I think just like that, the answer will be in leveraging already existing platforms, not creating new ones, to where these children are, in schools and in education centers like that, to include nutritional training into the curriculum and give them hands-on skills and empower everybody to be able to protect themselves, feed themselves and their family properly in the best way that we need. I hope I answered the question.
Thank you so much, Dr. Mego. Now we're coming to a close for the session, but I would allow our Mrs. Uju to do some justice to the last question. If you can do that in about 2 minutes, thank you.
Yes, I'll do that in 90 seconds. Thank you. So to the last question about tackling this issue of malnutrition in the adolescent girls, you're absolutely right. Targeting adolescent nutrition is actually the smartest intergenerational investment that Nigeria can make, given the roles of these young ladies who will eventually become mothers. And again, there's always room to do more work, but just to inform you that there's work ongoing with the Federal Ministry of Health, where iron and folic acids, in partnership with the Ministry of Education, are being supplied to these young girls, again, through the school platform. The NNS, the National Nutrition Scorecard, one of the indicators on there is actually nutrition education, and not to, sort of over-repeat what the other speakers have said. Nutrition literacy is key in tackling this challenge. There's something that you will hear in the Bible says when people perish because of lack of knowledge. Once we understand the issue of malnutrition and the need to tackle it beyond seeing it as food on the plate, to understand how it's linked to the cognitive development and of course to the growth of the economy by and large, then we can begin to see the importance. So embedding this nutrition education in our curriculum is key. That's one of the advocates that the Nutrition 774 initiative is making to governors. So where we see that the states are showing red rather than green, we speak to the governors to say, can you give us a time frame? Can we come back in 6 months? And this indicator that showed red at this point will turn green. So again, it's a hands-on effort. We cannot beat the importance of the traditional and faith leaders in this endeavor to be able to handle the issue or encourage, delayed marriage and support adolescent health and nutrition outcomes. Again, they play a key role to be able to change some of this stigma and norms that affect us as a nation negatively. So it's, again, like I said, 90 seconds, it requires all of government, all of society approach. And it starts by each and every one of us communicating, putting it out there, this issue of malnutrition, the need to focus on nutrition of not just children under 5, but adolescents and girls, and even our mothers, in the rural areas. It's by preaching this gospel, quote and unquote, that we can get solutions into the right place, and even the government will continue to see the importance of tackling malnutrition. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mrs. Uju. That was really wonderful. And I believe that all the speakers who have spoken have done justice to all the questions that were raised and also further improved and amplified our discussion today. Now, coming to a close, I would allow Mr. Thomason on my side here to encapsulate everything into one. Close this session with sustainable solutions. So we don't leave here only discussing the problems. I know we've had some solutions, especially from the questions that were raised, but what other angles can our solutions be directed towards? And thank you. If you can do that in 2 minutes, that would be fantastic. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you very much to all the panelists and the questions from the audience. I will not waste time talking about all of the initiatives, programs that have been talked about, but I will emphasize something that is very important. There is a terminology that has become a buzzword in the food sector. We call it food system. A number of us in this room have heard the word food system, but how many of us truly understand the food system? How many of us truly, really understand the Nigerian food system? When we do understand our food system, we begin to see clearly some of the problems that we face and why we face them. For example, all of the problems that the panelists have talked about. We have a food system that is not prioritizing women. Because, I led an initiative, a research in 2021, and we realized that some part of this country, we still have women who cannot buy farmland in their name. They have to get a man to represent them. But we are comfortable leaving the kitchen for women. But when it comes to the food of the community, we don't want them involved. That's a problem. So we need to understand the food system. Understanding the food system also means we understand the problems in food diversity. If you check very well, we've talked about having a lot of food in the country. But how are we able to access this food? How are we able to process them? Talking about processing, then you talk about all the problems food processing firms have, enterprises, agribusinesses in the country, from packaging to the equipment and so on and so forth. So I will not go further into talking about the problem, but there is one solution that I will emphasize. It is getting involved. We have a saying, nutrition is everyone's business. But I will add something to it. Solution starts when everybody knows who is everybody. It is everyone's business, but in your own situation, are you everyone? What are you doing differently? What are you feeding your family? Are you telling your neighbor that if you eat eba, gari every day, it is not good for their family? What are you doing differently? It is until we all take up this responsibility and start looking at ourselves as the problem and the solution provider and not placing all of our eggs in the basket of the government before we can start to see sustainable solutions to the malnutrition problem in the country. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. And please, a round of applause, a thunderous round of applause, please. Thank you so much, Mr. Thomason. This was splendid. I like the way you ended it. Solutions starts from everyone, and everyone needs to know who everybody is. And driving into that, we come to a close for this breakout session. But I want to bring a practical light to all this discussion. There's someone who has started making this solution, someone that is already seeing herself as everybody and seeing who everybody already is. And I want to invite Mrs. Louisa to tell us what she does and how she has begun to drive solutions for improving child nutrition. She's going to do that as we close in about 2 minutes. Just a quick introduction. Can she get a mic, please?
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen.
You can come towards the center, ma'am.
Standing here is Lizzie Akomoye. Beside me is
Jumbo Louisa.
Yeah. We are here to speak briefly on the child's nutrition, which we look at it to be important. 4 years ago, I just looked around my village. I noticed that there was malnutrition everywhere. And I live in a rural area where lack of knowledge is going on. We might have a lot of things there that would have covered up what we are looking for, and we don't know what to do. And money is the problem there. So I came up with an idea to make something we call Tom Brown. And this Tom Brown is very nutritious, and it's organic up through. There is nothing inorganic in it. It's for the women that may not afford money to go and buy milk or whatever to make the complete classes of food for their children to be healthy. They come on this one because this one is a kind of substitute that they can afford. And there are some items that we use in producing it. We use something like dates, guinea corn, granules, millet, and yellow corn. Then we add crayfish to it. We grind it very well, very smooth, and they use it in place of milk or whatever that they would have buy or they would have purchased with maybe big amount of money. So since I started this business in our area, we can see that there is a change in our area, because those days, children were suffering from kwashiorkor everywhere. But if you go to our village now, the children are looking healthy. Families are living very happily. You know, there's no way that you can disturb your husband to give you money, because we live in a place that our husbands are struggling to have money. So for that, in order to have a peaceful home, I have to go into this. I called some group of women. We came together. We put our head together. We started a business. And that group now, we call it Women Business Center. And as I'm standing in my village, my area.
Thank you, Mrs. Louisa. I'm so sorry to cut you short, but we are really out of time. And I see the audience already got the impact of what you do is beyond what you can actually watch 5 minutes. Thank you so much.
Okay.
Okay.
I think you can.
Thank you, and this is the end of our session. I think speakers, we can just take a group picture and stage. Thank you so much once again. Bye.
Please put your hands together for them.